At one point, Will Smith wasn't just one of the biggest actors in Hollywood. But why? See, in the video, he wasn't just making hit movies. He was the movie. For nearly 15 years. If Will Smith's name was on the poster, people bought tickets. It didn't matter whether he was fighting aliens, hunting robots, saving the world, falling in love, or surviving completely alone. Somehow, every genre worked, and Hollywood noticed. Studios began treating him like a guarantee. He became so reliable that he earned a nickname, Mr. 4th of July. Because whenever a Will Smith movie opened during the biggest movie weekend of the year, everyone else simply tried to stay out of the way. But here's what's strange. Will Smith was never considered the greatest actor of his generation. He wasn't known for disappearing into characters like Daniel Day-Lewis. He wasn't famous for dramatic transformations like Christian Bale. Many critics even argued that he was always just playing Will Smith. So how does someone become one of the biggest movie stars in history without being universally considered one of the greatest actors? The answer is much more interesting than most people realize. Because Will Smith wasn't simply acting, he was studying Hollywood itself. While other actors focused on auditions, Will Smith was studying audiences. While others searched for better performances, he searched for patterns. He wanted to understand something much bigger than acting. He wanted to understand why people buy movie tickets. And once he figured it out, he built one of the smartest careers Hollywood has ever seen. But before all the billion-dollar box office numbers, before the Oscar nominations, before Men in Black, before Independence Day, Will Smith had already discovered something that would quietly shape his entire career. People don't just fall in love with talent, they fall in love with trust. Long before Hollywood knew his name, Smith was already building that trust through music. As one half of DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, his songs weren't controversial, they weren't dangerous, and they weren't trying to shock anyone. Instead, they were funny, friendly, easy to understand. Families loved them. Kids loved them. Parents didn't mind them. In fact, the duo won the very first Grammy Award ever presented for Best Rap Performance. Without realizing it, Will Smith wasn't just becoming a successful rapper. He was becoming someone audiences felt comfortable inviting into their lives. That image would later become worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Hollywood wasn't buying an actor. It was buying trust. And then, something happened that almost nobody talks about today. Before the blockbusters, before the sunglasses, before the explosions, Will Smith gave one of the boldest performances of his career. In 1993, he appeared in a small drama called 6 Degrees of Separation. Most people have never seen it, but many critics still believe it's the movie that first proved Will Smith could genuinely act. There were no jokes to hide behind, no action scenes, no wisecracks. Instead, Smith played a complicated young man whose charm slowly revealed something much darker beneath the surface. The role demanded vulnerability, emotional control, a convincing accent, and a level of dramatic acting nobody expected from a rapper making the jump into Hollywood. Critics were surprised. Director Fred Schepisi later revealed that Smith spent weeks training with acting and dialect coaches before filming even began. On set, he constantly watched experienced actors like Ian McKellen and Donald Sutherland, listening, learning, asking questions, trying to understand how great performances were actually built. Years later, many critics would still point back to this forgotten movie as the first real glimpse of the actor hidden beneath the superstar. Ironically, almost nobody remembers it, because just 2 years later, everything changed. In 1995, a loud, explosive action movie called Bad Boys arrived, and suddenly, Will Smith wasn't just a promising young actor anymore. He was becoming a star. The movie wasn't expected to change Hollywood, but it did. Its chemistry, its energy, its confidence. Audiences loved it. More importantly, the film proved something Hollywood executives hadn't fully believed before. A black-led action movie could become a major international success. That single idea would quietly reshape Will Smith's future. Because from that point forward, he wasn't just making movies for America. He was thinking about the entire world. And nobody, not even Will Smith himself, could have imagined what would happen next. Because over the following decade, he wouldn't simply become successful. He would build one of the most unstoppable box office runs Hollywood has ever seen. Most actors spend their careers trying to become better performers. Will Smith was trying to become something else. He wanted to become inevitable. By the mid-1990s, Hollywood had already started noticing a pattern. Whenever Will Smith starred in a movie, people showed up. But Smith wasn't satisfied with simply being popular. He wanted to understand why. So every Monday morning, while most actors were celebrating a successful weekend or worrying about a disappointing one, Will Smith and his longtime producing partner, James Lasseter, were doing something unusual. They were studying the box office. Not casually, systematically. They analyzed which movies made the most money, which genres traveled internationally, what audiences responded to, which stories connected across different cultures. Smith later admitted that they were looking for patterns, and one pattern appeared again, and again, and again. The biggest hits almost always had a simple idea, a clear, emotional story, large-scale spectacle, and something audiences around the world could immediately understand. In other words, Will Smith wasn't choosing movies the way most actors did. He was building a blueprint, and once he had that blueprint, Hollywood entered one of the greatest winning streaks it had ever seen. It started in 1996, with a movie almost every studio thought would be impossible to pull off. Independence Day. The premise sounded ridiculous. Aliens invade Earth. Humanity has only days to survive. And somehow, a former sitcom star was leading the biggest blockbuster of the summer. It shouldn't have worked. Instead, it became one of the biggest movies ever made. The film earned more than $800 million worldwide. Suddenly, Will Smith wasn't just an American star anymore. He was becoming an international phenomenon. But here's the crazy part. That success could have been a one-time miracle. Instead, he did it again. Just 1 year later, he put on a black suit, picked up a memory erasing device, started hunting aliens, and turned Men in Black into another global sensation. Once again, hundreds of millions of people bought tickets. By now, something unusual was happening. Audiences weren't showing up because they loved alien movies. They were showing up because they loved Will Smith. The genre almost didn't matter. Action, comedy, science fiction. He made each one feel effortless, and that's what made him so dangerous. Then came something even more surprising. Most action stars eventually get trapped inside one formula. Arnold Schwarzenegger was the action hero. Jim Carrey was the comedy star. Tom Cruise became the face of impossible missions. But Will Smith refused to stay in one lane. Instead of making another alien movie, he chose romance. In 2005, he starred in Hitch, a romantic comedy. No spaceships, no monsters, no massive explosions, just conversations, relationships, and charm. Hollywood wasn't sure audiences would accept it. After all, people expected Will Smith to save the world, not help strangers fall in love. Then Hitch became another massive hit. More than 300. The more people forgot there was an actor underneath. For years, audiences expected the same version of Will Smith. Confident, funny, always in control. The guy who could crack a joke, punch an alien, and save the world before the credits rolled. That image became so powerful that many people started believing he was simply playing himself in every movie. But if you look closely, a completely different pattern begins to appear. Will Smith's best performances usually happened when the script took all of that away, when it stopped letting him be cool, when it forced him to fail, to break, to stay silent. The first major test came in 2001, with Ali. Playing Muhammad Ali wasn't just another acting job, it was a gamble. Ali wasn't only one of the greatest athletes in history, he was one of the most recognizable people on Earth. Millions already knew how he talked, how he moved, how he fought, how he smiled. Getting any of it wrong would have been obvious. So Will Smith disappeared into preparation. For nearly a year, he trained
From
almost
rap
every
icon
single
to global
day,
superstar, Will
learning how to
Smith's career
box,
is legendary.
changing his
He
body,
smashed records with Men in
studying
Black,
Ali's
earning half a
interviews,
billion,
his
and his
rhythm,
Oscar win for
his
King Richard
confidence,
proved his dramatic
his
power,
movements
crossing a
inside
billion.
the ring. Director Michael Mann later said Smith trained 4 to 5 hours every day for months, not to look like a boxer, but to become one. When the film finally arrived, critics were divided on the movie itself, but almost everyone agreed on one thing. Will Smith had delivered the best performance of his career. It earned him his first Academy Award nomination. For the first time, Hollywood wasn't just talking about his box office numbers. They were talking about his acting. But what happened next
what a
might have
journey.
been even
From
more
sci-fi
impressive.
blockbusters to heartfelt
5
dramas.
years later,
Every
Smith
role
starred
pushed me,
in
and I
The
loved every
Pursuit
minute.
of Happiness.
Thank you
There
for
were no
being part of
aliens,
this.
no robots, no giant action scenes. Just a struggling father trying to build a better life for his son. The movie looked incredibly simple, but emotionally, it demanded more than almost anything Smith had done before. Because
Thank
real
you.
heartbreak is
This
even
means
rarer.
everything.
One of the last
Best
people who could
movie
sell
star
almost any
ever.
movie, simply
You
because
all
his
are the
name
real
was on the poster.
stars.
Maybe he wasn't the greatest actor Hollywood has ever produced, but he was one of its smartest, one of its most versatile, and unquestionably, one of the last true movie stars. So, if acting alone earns him an 8 out of 10, his impact on Hollywood is something else entirely. Because as a movie star, Will Smith wasn't just great. He helped define an era that may never exist again. My conclusion is that Will Smith, he didn't just become a movie star.
The
He
last
learned how to
true movie
manufacture
star.
stardom and
Thank
eventually
you.
became
This is
trapped inside it.
unbelievable. A box
If you like
office
the
legend.
information about Will Smith,
I owe it
like,
all
share,
to you.
and subscribe
We love
for the
you,
next
Will.
one.